Hello everyone, today I am in Cumberland, Ontario. I'm going to take you on a tour of the Cumberland Heritage Village Museum. And here's the map. So right now I am here, and then I am planning on taking a tour all the way around. All right, so let's go check it out. As you can see, it is set up as a cute little 1920s, 1930s heritage village. And you can visit all of the buildings. But first I'm going to start with the caboose. That is on my right here. And we can walk through it. And there's a bunch of heritage tools. A couple of informational placards. So this one says, long lines of freight cars were a common sight on the rural landscape. Farmers relied on train service to ship their goods to market in the city, while their families eagerly picked up their catalog orders from the station. Eggs, milk, cattle, washing machines, and radios. Almost everything came and went by train. Rail workers pour ice into a refrigerated car known as a reefer. Used since the 1840s, these cars hauled perishable goods across the country. Farmers could ship their products further, and fresh food, not otherwise available, was brought to rural towns and villages. The 1937 design of overhead ice compartments allowed for even cooler and more storage space. This is neat, Morse code. And you can see railway tracks. Okay. This looks like a garden. A bunch of tools. across the street. Let's go check out A.E. McKean General Merchant. I think this is where you're supposed to, you would tie up your horse, I guess. Hi, how are you?
Okay.
Good. This is my first time here.
Welcome to the general store.
Thank you. Wow.
I'm just scratching a lot. There's a lot of mosquitoes.
Oh,
everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tis the season. Wow, that's so neat.
So this is was once a house owned by the Mainville family,
Okay.
and when we got it to the museum, we turned it into a general store.
Okay.
Although it says McKean's General Store.
Yes.
I think that sign's unrelated.
Okay. And just curious, was I
sign.
right that is where you would tie up your horse? Or is that just...
Well, someone put that. We put it up.
Okay.
To suggest that. Yeah.
Okay, no, I was right. Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like they're going, they're theming it to 1800s instead of, because the museum's really 1930s.
Right, that's what I thought.
Theme, so I guess they're trying to have fun. Yeah. So we've got all these replica. I mean, they're real labels from the period, but there's no food in them, I should say.
Oh, okay.
But they're all packages and cans from the time. Like I even have a craft.
I mean, interesting that like brands like Jell-O and shredded wheat, like they're brands that we
they're not new.
that we still have, which is kind of neat.
Well, molasses and honey never runs out. But
Craft dinner.
You still have Crosby's. Yeah.
Craft dinner.
I like that one because it's
Campbell's.
It's a little
Yeah, that is quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I like the cream cheese one there beside the cans.
I think it's Elmer. I think Elmer is still a brand. If I'm remembering correctly.
I just like the packaging. It's a lot different.
Yeah.
So I don't really know much about the change in packaging, but anyway, they're trying to let you see what you'd have on your shelves in the 30s, I guess.
Yeah, even like the cash register is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's an old cash register, and it's I'm the storekeeper, but this is my area, but I just.
And is this a weight?
Because the kids always want to go back there, and there's a lot of junk.
Is this a weight?
Yeah,
You'd weigh?
This is a scale, for probably for like cheeses and meats and heavy things like that. And then we've got making it happy, was it? We have a weigh scale over there, which is more like a balance scale, and then we try to show how the nails and stuff on it. Yeah. And I don't know if it has a name. Sorry, my glasses are over here. I don't think it does. It has a brand name.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, well, have fun.
You have a good day.
Glad you came.
So far, I'm glad I came.
It's built by the Dufour family. They were a private home, obviously, and they lived, if you know Orleans at all, that was on St. Joseph's Boulevard. So it was like one on the main strand. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
They were dairy farmers, and they had a lot of kids. I want to say
For me, this is the wildlife.
Yeah.
Yesterday we were driving across the field.
We saw more wildlife. Yeah, the forest hides everything.
Oh. That last house we had in St. Albert, that's on
I think that's an old school radio.
foxes, deers.
See what this is?
What is that?
No. Oh yeah.
That's my
Oh, there's an old school car in here. Wow. That is amazing. Another garden. Looks like a carpenter shop. Hi.
Hi there, how you doing?
I'm good.
Hello.
Oh, they're loud. Wow. You guys have a lot to say.
I'm not working right now, just watch your stuff come on through.
Oh.
Why not?
Thanks.
Yeah. Not wearing sandals,
No, running shoes.
Cool. We're renovating the carpentry shop, so we're going to expand
Okay.
to this side, but we've got to get our collections team to pull out the old dairy exhibit that was here.
Okay.
But if you want to have a look at the dairy exhibit, go on. And,
Okay, cool. Thank
feel
you.
free to explore.
Some hidden treasures in here.
Yeah, some pretty cool artifacts actually, and some great panels too. So sort of going over like the start of like industrial milking and how we moved from like a manual milking machine into more like large scale agriculture, that sort of thing.
As the dairy industry expanded, feeding and milking machinery became more complex. The old hand and bucket method no longer collected enough milk. Farmers turned to machines, which reduced labor while increasing milk production. So Farmers used milk cans to store their raw milk and transport it to the dairy once pasteurized for consumption. Dairies bottled the milk and delivered them to the customer's doorstep in the 1920s. Dairies embossed their business name on the bottles. Dairies collected, cleaned, and reused the bottles over and over again. As demand grew, small farm-based dairies could no longer supply milk directly to consumers' homes. Large modern companies could process, package, and deliver milk, butter, and cheese more efficiently. Individual farmers sold their raw milk to large dairies for processing and distribution. This provided farms with year-round income, allowing them to grow their operations. This bulletin was part of a series of booklets published by the Department of Agriculture. It was a collection of recipes and information of milk products aimed at Canadian women. The bulletin claimed that those who used the book would offer healthier food to their families and could even pasteurize milk at home. Infected milk sometimes caused disease outbreaks. The solution was pasteurization. Through the process, milk is heated to 145 degrees Fahrenheit, held there for 30 minutes, and then cooled it to 50 degrees Fahrenheit as quickly as possible. As early as 1920, farmers could be fined for not pasteurizing their milk. Ontario strengthened its pasteurization laws in 1938. Farmers organized numerous associations and marketing boards to promote their interests. Founded in 1934, the Canadian Dairy Farmers Federation lobbied for production quotas and fair prices for farmers. The federation was later renamed the Dairy Farmers of Canada. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cumberland, 1900. This 1914 bell was originally from SS number 5 and was saved from the building in 1967 when it was torn down. The bell was restored and donated to the museum in 1981. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Are you the teacher?
Yes, I'm the teacher for that.
Wow. Did they teach all, like from kindergarten all the way up to end of
Yeah.
being a teenager, like
Oh,
all
yeah,
grade,
they did-
like all grades
Yep,
were
and they did
together?
it all at the same time.
Okay. the worst I had was, you had 2 grades together sometimes or whatever, but that was it. I can't imagine being in the same classroom with kindergartens.
Yeah. Well, this is a very rural school. I mean, typically it wouldn't have been at kindergarten. You'd probably start a little bit later, by around like grade 1 or grade 2, I'd say. But yeah, you'd have them all
Together.
in a room, teach them all a variety of different subjects at the same time. And yeah, I don't envy those teachers.
And up to what age did they go to school back then?
Typically, you go to school at grade 8 would be the equivalency. If you were going to a school like this, like higher schooling definitely did exist at the time, but this is for like farmers or rural families and the like. So this was mainly just to keep children off the streets while the parents were working, and eventually bring them back into the farm to help them out.
So silly bit of a babysitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Then what age, like they had universities back then. At what age would you go to university then?
So that would be like, if you're a well-off family, like school would be like almost identical as it is today. You'd start at like kindergarten, you'd go all the way up to the final year of high school, and then you go off to
University.
But because this is like a lot smaller of a school, it's for like a rural farming community, you didn't have that. It was just up to about grade 8, and then after that you were just thrown out, and you either had to work in the farm or the factory or wherever it is that you're at.
All right, so in the early 1900s, you only went to university if you had a lot of money.
If you're really well off, yeah,
Okay.
didn't have any socialized education or anything like that.
Fair enough. Neat. Oh, yeah, 1921 increased the mandatory attendance age from 14 to 16. School days ran from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., so pretty similar. Oh, actually, now it's till 3. But we didn't have to go home and milk cows.
My favorite story about this building, well, there's a couple. The first one is if you look around, you'll notice that the wallpaper is all fleur-de-lis.
Oh, yeah.
So it's upside down.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll notice that there's like one section right where this clock is.
Yep.
Where the fleur-de-lis is the correct sort of like orientation. Because this is like a French language school.
Okay.
And the story goes that the people designing the school were very much like pro-British Empire, pro-monarchy, pro-English speaking, etc. So this is kind of a way to get back at the French people, to like, put all the fleur-de-lis upside down.
Oh.
To try to like get back at them. So that one section, that was apparently when somebody came in and saw what they'd done, and they was like, can't tear down everything, so we'll just correct it on this section.
Not a detail I would have noticed. Thanks for pointing that out. Wow, neat.
And the second one is, you'll notice that this fireplace here.
Yeah.
Notice that the chimney is all the way back here. And that's just
Yeah.
simply because you light the fire there, the heat would go up, the smoke would go through this pipe here, go out. That was to kind of heat up the whole room better. So it's kind of like your first sort of central heating.
Oh, okay. Wow, fascinating. Well, thank you. I learned a lot.
Yeah, the kids are really hard. Yeah, it's going to be summertime, so I don't think they're really going to come visit.
So what year was this thing?
Well, that was fascinating. think that one says employees only, so we can't go in that building. Okay, so next we've got the print shop. The print shop. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, yourself?
I'm good. Enjoying the beautiful day. So did they print newspapers?
Yes, so
Like this?
we have the ability to print newspapers in this space. It takes a two-person job though, and it's using this big machine back here.
Okay.
So this is our Whitlock press. We got this thing up and running last year
Neat.
over the summer as a combined effort from amongst the staff. Before that, it hadn't been in operation since '89. So
Okay.
we know this because when the machine is being used, there's an offset that occurs from whatever you're printing onto this roller here called the tinting paper. And so you can see this has an offset of the one we were printing.
Yeah.
Before we got the whole thing cleaned up and ready to go, the previous print job was there, and it was from a paint company called Color Your World. Have you ever heard of them?
Yes.
This is the machine they used to print the labels for the cans.
Oh, no way. Okay.
So we had all the labels still printed on there, and then when we took this off to clean it, a tradition is that you pack underneath this paper with newspaper and old junk just you have lying around to kind of give some cushioning.
Okay.
And that was dated March of '89, so we kind of have an idea that that's probably the last time anybody used the machine.
Okay.
Previous to about 10 months
But
ago.
do you know like their original date?
Yes,
ish-
so the
ish of it?
machine itself, like our machine, the date is between 1910 and 1917. The actual manufacturing of the company, though, is the late 1800s.
Oh, okay.
Now, there are only, as far as we know, 2 of these machines. There's a Whitlock press, 2 of them in operation in North America. There's one here, and there's one at the Niagara Printery. We actually got the gentleman who runs the Niagara Printery to come by to give us some pointers when we were trying to get this thing up and running.
Okay.
And it's funny, he brought a poster with a picture of his machine on it, which ended up being the thing that kind of gave us the final insight. His poster shows the machine just like this, including this lever. Our machine didn't have this lever. So
Oh.
all it had was a stick, a slot here to screw in something, and a hole. And we kind of looked at the poster and went, hey, he says something ours doesn't have, which ended up being the main thing that was causing us problems is this lever here.
Okay.
If you engage it, it prevents printing onto this. So it lets you print a sheet of paper that doesn't have anything on the back. Which is the first step of printing is you want to make sure that only one side of your page has the stuff on it. So that's where we got, it took about 5 months, that's the state we got the machine into last year. This year the hope is that we will be able to print another newspaper and maybe even do like a full run. So we were only able to print a single test page.
Yep.
But if you imagine, can you guess how long it took to set this type?
Like, do you literally set it letter by letter?
It's actually right here.
Wow.
You got my flashlight?
I came by to see if you can shop house. I mean, this,
The blue ones there.
yeah. I have no clue where those are. Okay, you smell like.
Oh no, I actually have the literal flashlight. But for those hot towels, they've been open for a while. No one knows where they are. I have no clue.
Oh, wait.
All right.
So,
Well, I'm gonna grab some lunch, so catch you later.
so yeah, this text here is the
Yeah.
actual text that was then printed onto that newspaper page.
Mm-hmm.
And every single one of these is an individual letter.
Wow.
So to give an example,
Oh my goodness.
this right here is 12-point font.
Yep.
It took my colleague about 60 hours to set that.
That's wild.
Yeah. Right now I'm setting tight.
So way back when, like how many pages would you say a newspaper would be compared to today's, like the Ottawa Citizen or whatever. Like,
I've had between about
like
5 to 10.
okay.
And now, mind you, this machine would print a single side of a single page.
So not like today, it's both sides.
Yeah, today when they operate the press, it's basically a big fancy digital press. So it prints all sides of all pages and then folds them and neatly distributes them.
Mm-hmm.
For a print run, you would need, realistically, if you want to do it smoothly, one of these per page. If you wanted to have like a production line, so you'd print one, it would get printed, go into a pile, and there'd be usually a young boy whose job it is to take it to the next machine, give it to the printer there, they feed it through on the back side, and you have a bunch of these in sequence so that at the end you end up having all the pages you need.
Okay.
If you want, I can't operate it with the power.
Oh no, it's okay.
Job, I can roll it so you can see what it does.
Sure.
Um,
Is the and the type of paper, would it be different then than today?
For newspapers, yes. Newspapers generally made of the cheapest
Yeah.
you can get. Whatever is mulchy, papery, because it's going to be dead in a day. I would say that back then, the paper would have been a little bit stronger
Oh.
because we hadn't really figured out a way to make as like inexpensive a paper yet that still holds together. So normally what you do to get us to run is you have to engage this guy up here, which is the transmission of power from the line shaft. It's a motor that's upstairs.
Yeah.
But in an actual press, or an actual printing facility, these would all be run off of like a tractor or a steam engine out back that just has a line running through it. But because I'm just going to do this by hand, we just do this by hand. So, big components here. This drum is the main kind of bit of show here. It's going to collect the papers and transfer them against the print surface, which is that text I showed you under here.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's going to spit it out for the next thing to go. When you ink this press up, you'll be putting the ink on this guy right here, this long roller.
Okay.
It's made of metal. It oscillates back and forth and thus spreads the ink over all the text. So here we go, we get cool. So the first action here, you're going to see the paper gets grabbed by these little fingers and then sucked in right here. So it gets pulled in,
Yeah.
and then at this point it would be making contact with
Okay. Yeah.
the actual text. And as it comes back up, it's now been pressed and it gets distributed off the top. And then the next piece would get grabbed and go on. And so the paper makes a loop around here and then slowly kind of wiggles its way to the end here, where you can see these little arms here. They would have been a table or a basket,
To grab it.
so someone can grab it.
Wow. And would it be like super like smudgy? Like you get if you touched it, you get ink on your hands?
It's not the paper that gets smudgy because this machine's pretty good at only putting a little bit of ink on. The bigger worry is everything you touch is smudgy.
Okay.
So it's really easy to...
Messy job.
The type is honestly the dirtiest thing. All the metal just sits there and collects oxidization a little bit. Does so anytime I touch the text, the type, I always have to go wash my hands before I handle the paper, otherwise
Yeah.
it's off smudges.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah. If you want, I can actually print something using this guy. It's all set up to go.
Sure.
Let me just, for the reasons I just stated, wipe my hands. So on this machine, what I have set up today is the base sheets for shopping lists. So we make shopping lists for all of the different locations on site. So whenever they need something from one of the other locations, so say for example somebody said, oh, I need the carpenter to cut me a bunch of wood.
Yep.
They have a shopping list, they write it down, they hand it to the carpenter knows this is from someone on site. So the lists themselves are just like this, they're little bound
Okay. Yeah.
stickies. I've already got the form in there. Stick it in. So this one operates a little bit differently. You put the ink on the plate here, and then the rollers are going to squish the ink down. It's already been done. They squish the ink down to a really fine, thin layer over the plate, and then that stores the ink. It's then transferred using these rollers just on top of the text. Just kisses it with the ink. When you're ready, you put your paper in here. Now Now you'll notice that there's no noise, and it doesn't actually come out inked. That's because to get it to ink, I have to hit this lever. Comes out like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then
I like this one much better than that one.
Yeah, this one's a lot more fun because it's also you can work with one person.
Yeah.
I really like this machine. We also have the teeny tiny one. That's the hand crank one. It does the same thing, but it's just not powered. That was made last week.
Wow, that is amazing. Neat. And what like time period were these used?
So this machine, the actual machine itself, is from the 40s, but it's based off of a design that is older than that. It's just the actual physical hardware.
Right.
That old. This one is, as you said, from about like 1914, 1915 is kind of.
Okay, that makes more sense why this one's more advanced.
Yeah. What's funny is that one, the one that looks the most advanced, is actually the oldest machine we have.
Oh, no way.
1885-ish.
Wow.
That thing is not a printing press though. This machine is a linotype machine, which is a big fancy way of saying it's a machine that prints metal type to be used in one of the other machines.
Like
Yeah, exactly.
you physically
so
type.
The machine has two main components. There's the type setting aspect, so this part has all the cutters. And then there's a vat back here that would be for boiling lead.
Oh,
Yes, this is why it's not turned on.
sounds dangerous.
Oh, very. It's also so loud it makes you go deaf.
Oh my God.
So they generally only hire deaf people to work these machines.
Oh,
when they
wow.
could. Like,
Okay.
New York Times had I think 10 of them on their processing floor, and it was all deaf people working on it. Because you enter that building and it's so noisy. Yeah. So what this machine does is you type in your line of type that you want, and it hot forges a strip with all the letters already pre-built, which means that this can be placed just into the typesetting instead of each letter. This is the machine that let people make more than one newspaper a week.
I was about to say, like, the typing part sounds way more convenient than this.
Oh, unbelievable.
But,
So, the kind of classic thing
but the
is-
other features are not.
Yeah, that thing I personally find most interesting about this machine, aside from like the kind of complexity of all the bits inside there, is that this machine doesn't have a delete key. So if you wanted to make a correction, you would just swipe down the first line and then the second line at the keyboard, and that way when the editor came by and checked your work, they'd see, okay, that's just nonsense. We can recycle that and melt it back down. Problem is, not all the editors are paying attention, and these things make it past scrutiny, and then the plate makes its way to the person typesetting it and putting it in the actual newspaper, and it makes its way into the newspaper. That's not so bad, except that if it's the delete key, it's the same two words that keep appearing as mistakes, which means that if you go on Google and you search this word and that word, Etienne Chardlou, you get a bunch of crazy conspiracy theories about this mystery man from Europe who was in all the newspapers. Because if you had a German paper or an English or a French or a Spanish, any Latin-based alphabet, it's the same machine. So it's the same delete, which means that, you know, the newspaper would say, today the Prime Minister met with blah, 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 and, you know, had a great time, Etienne Chardlou. What's that there for? People started to make all these weird connections. Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating. Wow. Well, I've learned a lot today. Thank you.
Any questions? Do you want to?
I think that was a very thorough explanation. Thank you very much. Super neat. Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your visit.
I will. Wow, I have to say, I'm very impressed with the people that work here. They are very knowledgeable and very nice. So this is neat. An old school garage. It does have Esso as a brand, which is interesting. Watson's Garage. I'm like, I hear a voice, but I don't see anyone. That car is so cool.
1934 Ford flatbed truck for the one-ton truck.
Wow.
And it runs. We fired it up this morning. Take it out, drive it
It
around sometime.
really, it still starts. That's amazing.
Something underneath there.
Here's some old tractors. So here's the map again, and we are here. Hello.
Hello.
What's going on in here?
This is the blacksmith shop.
Oh, okay.
So traditionally, this is where.
So you make horseshoes? Yes?
Traditionally, but by the 20s and 30s, blacksmith's not really making anything at all.
Oh.
It's more of like repair. They'll put some tires on wagon wheels. They'll put the shoes on the horses, but everything is being made in factories. So the blacksmith becomes a very much dying trade.
Okay.
But they are still around. Just most of them happen to be over 40.
Is this an old school cowbell?
Yeah. A very big one.
The blacksmith would not only make the shoes, but would actually put them on the horse?
The blacksmith's main job was putting them on the horse.
Put them on the horse.
In the early days, he would make them and put them on, but then he would just start buying them in bulk.
So today, the people who put horseshoes on horses, are they still called a blacksmith?
They're called farriers, and farrier was a large part. So the blacksmith split into several different jobs. The car mechanic is one of the major ones that the blacksmith became later.
Okay.
Same with machinists, so the people working in factories.
Mm-hmm.
They started off as blacksmiths as well.
Okay.
And then farriers. But yeah, various work, people just went and instead of having general blacksmiths, someone who did everything, people started specializing.
Okay. So today, the shoes are made in a factory and then a farrier puts them on the horse, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But farriers, like blacksmiths, today still do, for the most part, a little bit of customization. Because, like, these are some horseshoes from the time period, so around the 20s and 30s. Like, if the nail's not going in, they're going to fix it, and things like that.
Okay.
Like, they're not perfect. This one's a mess.
And how are they the same or different to today?
This is one from today they look largely the same. It's just they have the sizes on them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Why do we have a nail in here? Every time I'm in the shop, something new arrives that I'm not happy with. Like whoever's clipping the horse's hooves and bringing it to me.
Are there horses here?
Yeah.
Oh, goody.
They're at the far corner from here.
Okay. I heard.
Nope, they changed them last week. I don't know their names.
I just heard that there's animals over here, so I'll go.
I'll throw it the site, yeah.
I'll go check them out. Anyways, thank you. That was a very helpful explanation. And there's one cow here. Old school weather vane. Another old school tractor. Oh, we got some rabbits. Are they enjoying their lunch? I don't think we can go in that one. All right, so heritage breed farm animals. Meet heritage breed farm animals common in Canada during the 1920s and 1930s, loaned to the museum by Heritage Livestock Club of Eastern Ontario. Heritage breeds are animals traditionally raised by farmers prior to modern-day industrial-scale agriculture. Heritage breed farm animals have the traits needed to live in natural environments. These include greater resistance to disease, easier birthing, and self-reliance. The goal of the club is to ensure the survival of these heritage breed farm animals. The club teaches people about the value of heritage breeds, helps farmers raise and conserve heritage breed animals, and develop niche markets for their products. All right, so we are officially in the farm section. There's some fascinating historical farm equipment. Comment down below if you know what any of this machinery was used for. The Macmillan drive shed. Drive sheds or machine sleds like this one are working spaces that show how running a farm takes creativity and connection to a larger community. Drive sheds are hallmarks of Eastern Ontario farms. They are often built next to fields to allow farmers to store their vehicles and machinery close to where the equipment is used. This drive shed was built on the Macmillan farm in Cumberland Township in 1955 with skills and techniques often used in the early 1900s. It was brought to the Cumberland Heritage Village Museum in 1994. Kinds of interesting things in this barn. So as farmers became more profitable, some farmers had more to spend on machinery and tools. Owning the biggest and best was important for some. It was a way of showing success. Companies responded to this demand with more advertising. They gave away promotional signs, tools, and even mailboxes to publicize their equipment. Many companies had regional and local salesmen who sold their products. These networks of sellers, buyers, and traders linked communities across Eastern Ontario. Business skills were just as important as agriculture when it came to running a successful farm. Farming skills weren't just learned from family members. In the late 1800s, the Department of Education introduced nature study and agriculture into the school curriculum to teach farming skills to rural students. At the same time, farmers began learning best practices from agricultural colleges, which expanded across Ontario in the early 1900s. Farmers learned best farming practices, including the use of machinery to increase efficiency. Agriculture colleges also taught marketing and accounting. One farmer from Dundas County, Ontario, remembers neighbors from all over the county coming together to raise a barn wall. When one farmer needed the help, they would set a date and neighboring farms would pass the word on to other neighbors. When the day arrived, they would gather on the property of the neighbor who needed help. After raising the barn, the farmer's family rewarded their neighbors with a celebratory supper. When the work was too great for a single family to accomplish alone, farmers relied on neighbors for help. Neighbors shared tools, machinery, knowledge, skills, and labor. They stepped in when a family couldn't complete their work. If someone was away, injured, facing a big problem, or had an especially busy time of year, they could count on their neighbors to lend a hand with the work. In turn, they would help out their neighbors. Working together was more than just a good way to get work done. It strengthened relationships and built community ties too. In a farming family, everyone contributes. Children take on farming tasks early in life. This not only helps with farming tasks, but also teaches them the skills and knowledge they need to run a farm themselves in the future. On a farm, chores don't discriminate. Everyone worked as they could whenever and wherever work needed to be done. Okay, so there is a bunch of equipment also in here that we can explore with informational packs. So this one from 1920. Farmers often used the tools they had to adapt their equipment for new technology or designs. This grain binder from the early 1900s was designed to be pulled by horses. The tongue used to hitch the binder was originally longer to accommodate the horses that pulled it. When a tractor replaced the horses, the farmers adapted the tongue to fit the tractor's lower hitch point. The large arms on the grain binder sweep stalks of grain onto the platform, where they are pushed into a sheath and wrapped with twine, then pushed out the side of the machine to be picked up later. Baler twine is used to wrap and tightly bind bundles of grasses. It is very strong, even though it's thin. Some farmers save their baler twine for reuse in all sorts of ways. One farmer from Leeds County, Ontario, recalls a broken fence rail that they temporarily fixed with baler twine, intending to make a more permanent repair, only to replace the baler twine with new twine every year. So this is an International Harvester corn binder from 1930. And this is a Massey Harris seed drill, 1910. Planting the seed. Many farmers used store-bought seeds along with seed they saved from the previous year's plants. By sorting, drying, and saving seeds from the previous year, a farmer could save a lot of money. Some farmers even reused packets from commercial seeds to keep their seeds organized over the winter. In many communities, farmers traded seeds to diversify their crops from year to year. This tradition lives on in farming communities, gardening associations, and neighborhoods across eastern Ontario. Planting crops takes time. This 1928 Rennie's seed catalog helped farmers plan their year well ahead of planting season. The company, based in Toronto, supplied farmers and home gardeners across southern and eastern Ontario. All right, so inside here, so there are a bunch of seed packets, and so this is the Rennie's Seed Annual 1928. Let me try and open it. I've got with one hand. Okay, so this is what it looked like in 1928. Anishinaabe, my apologies for the pronunciation, tradition understands the year in 13 moon cycles, each of which has its own lessons and associated activities. These guide land stewardship and harvesting practices in ensuring a good and sustainable relationship with plants, animals, and all of creation. When to plant. The right time to plant and harvest vary from farm to farm and farmer to farmer. Each farmer adapts to their own location, field, and crop. Their knowledge is passed on from one generation to another. Different traditions have different approaches. Farmers depended on calendars and almanacs, looked for signs in the land, and took into account wisdom and advice from family and neighbors. Farm work responds to seasonal patterns to maximize the yield of crops. Planting and harvesting mark the two major parts of crop farming, with crop maintenance in between and field preparation beginning and ending the year. When equipment is broken, farmers may not always have had access to the right tools or materials to fix it. Instead, they had to get creative with what was available to them. Many farmers held onto spare parts and extra pieces of equipment or material. Saving everything just in case was especially common among farmers who lived far from stores or who couldn't afford more conventional fixes. You never know when that spare part or extra material might come in handy. Look around. What do you see that could be used to fix something that's broken? What creative repairs do you see? Here. The first number rating represents the power of the belt pulley, and the second represents the draw power, how much pulling power the tractor has. Both of these ratings are measured in horsepower, the number of draft horses needed to make the same amount of power. When farmers were moving from horses to tractors, it was an easy comparison to make. Imagine the upkeep needed for 28 horses compared to one tractor. I love this picture showing how many horses versus a tractor. So the early 20th century saw a shift in agricultural technology. Tractors became more affordable thanks to mass production. They were stronger and more efficient than horses, the traditional used sources of power for farm work. Many farmers switched to tractors as they became easier to buy. Machinery that had traditionally been pulled by horses switched to, and many farmers bought new equipment or adapted their horsepower machines to fit onto tractors. It says, climb up onto this 1936 Massey Harris pacemaker to see what it feels like to drive a tractor. Okay, but there is another sign over here that says, coming soon, we are restoring this tractor. Check back soon to see the progress. I'm just seeing the other side of the barn. Cockshut Hart 18-28 tractor from 1928. The Alice Chalmers Model U tractor, 1932. All right, I think we are now getting into where the animals are. And oh my goodness, here are some noisy pigs. Hello. Oh my goodness, you guys are so cute. Are you saying hello to YouTube? Bunch of logs. See. Oh, this looks like a wood mill inside. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. See a tractor in action. Not sure what this machine is. Here's a map. Cumberland Township, 1881. Population was 2,075. Oh, let's see, that sign is in French, but here is an English version. So first, some pictures. 1900s, 1939. (1908). So this is John Sharkey's and his family. So the Sharkeys of Cumberland. As pump builders, tanners, and farmers, the Sharkey family was an example of the resourceful and enterprising spirit that built Cumberland Township. As a young man, John Sharkey learned the tanning and wooden pump making trades while working with family in New York and Ontario. Around 1881, he moved to Cumberland Village and opened a combined tanning and pump making business. The business supplied a small but widespread market. Pumps were delivered by horse and wagon throughout Cumberland Township and across the Ottawa River into Quebec. As a tanner, John Sharkey shipped sheets of tanned leather downriver to Montreal or sold them to local shoe and harness makers. He also produced finished leather products such as halters and calfskin mittens. In 1898, John Sharkey bought a farm with the income from these enterprises and added agriculture to his list of business ventures. Though he closed the tannery business at one point, John Sharkey continued to farm and build pumps until 1916. John Sharkey Jr. inherited the pump factory from his father in 1917. He moved the machinery from the village to his farm in 1923 and continued to operate the small factory as a business until 1933. The increased population of cast iron pumps and the hard times of the Great Depression forced Sharkey Jr. to concentrate more on farming than pump making. However, he continued to make pumps on special order until 1965. Right. So again, this is John Sharkey Sr. in 1900. This is John Sharkey Jr. and neighbors, 1939. And this is the children of John Sharkey Sr., 1908. This is, I believe, tannery business. Okay, so before factory made cast iron pumps, village craftsmen manufactured water pumps using regional sources of wood. These pumps functioned well, but required maintenance. As cheap, reliable cast iron pumps became available around 1900, wooden models were gradually replaced. From 1881 until the 1930s, the Sharkey family used the equipment on display to manufacture and sell pumps in Cumberland. These pumps were made from tamarack logs brought from Navan, Ontario, and Lochaber, Quebec. This equipment is still operational and is used to make the wooden pumps located at the museum. Belts and pulleys. All of the machinery operates on a pulley system. Wooden pulleys are attached to a long metal shaft rotated by a 7 horsepower kerosene engine. The pulley on the shaft are connected to the pulleys on the machines by long belts of leather or cotton. As the pulleys on the shaft rotate, the belts turn the pulleys on the machines. The speed of the machinery depends upon the size of the pulleys used. A twist in the belt changes the direction of the spin. The large lathe is used to skin and shape the outside of the logs that form the pump, body, and pipes. While the cylinder is spinning in the lathe, chisels are used to remove the bark and carve the outside into a round shape. One end of the pipe is also tapered to allow it to be joined end to end with another pipe. Boring drill. The boring drill is used to core straight logs to make the hollow cylinders required for the pump, body, and water pipes. A log or block is positioned in the carriage so the drill bit can be driven through its center. To bore a hole, 2 craftsmen push the carriage toward the drill. The carriage is pulled back frequently to withdraw the bit from the log and remove the wood cuttings. A small pilot hole is drilled first and is enlarged with a larger drill bit to create a hollow cylinder. Wooden blocks are turned on the small lathe to carve the tapers and grooves that shape the outside of the plunger and the foot valve. This lathe is also used to carve the water spout, the pump handle, and the plunger rod. And lastly, the drill press is used to bore a hole in the small cylinder used for the water spout and to drill holes in the pump handle and brackets. Okay, I think I see some horses. There they are. Warning, electric fence and do not touch them. But we will admire them from afar. They are also enjoying their lunch. I just noticed there is a cemetery over here. I won't go in, but there's a large cemetery here. There's a garden behind this house. Here's another heritage house. Kitchen. to see Campbell's soup. A little desk. Bird cage. And the living room. Little piano. I have to say though, you gotta look up. There's an incredible ceiling. Same with this room as well. Incredible ceiling. I assume this is a tin ceiling. Oh, so this is a old school fire hall. A life net is an obsolete tool to rescue people from burning buildings. People jumped from upper floors to safety with varying degrees of success. Invented in the late 1880s, firefighters used this tool for nearly a century. And this is an incredible old-fashioned fire truck. Cool burn. Okay. Goulburn Fire Department. So for years, firefighting equipment like pumps, hoses, and water tanks relied on manual and horsepower to reach fires. By the late 1920s, gas-powered vehicles such as this, the 1929 GMC T20 fire truck, took over. In 1929, the History of Ottawa bought this, in 1929, the City of Ottawa bought this vehicle for just over $2,000. When this fire truck was retired, the rural volunteer firefighters in Goulburn, now part of Ottawa since amalgamation in 1999, used and later restored it. In rural areas, the first fire trucks transported water since most communities did not have access to municipal water service. These tanker trucks fetched water from a nearby water source, such as a river, to fight fires. And there's ladders on the wall. Here's some old school fire buckets, I assume for water. They put water in them. Fire extinguishers. hose hanging. So fire extinguishers have a single job: to swiftly extinguish a fire before it spreads. They took over from easily misplaced fire buckets, which used precious time to fill with water. So here's kind of a history. I won't read it all. History of different fire extinguishers. So different extinguishers are for different types of fires: grease, electrical, or ordinary combustibles. Spraying water on electrical fires could electrocute firefighters. Dousing water on flammable liquids could make it worse. So I was right. These were the old school way of filling buckets with water to put a fire out. So one of the earliest pieces of fire equipment was a fire bucket. When church bells rang to sound the alarm, villagers grabbed their fire buckets and ran to the fire. Long lines formed as people passed buckets filled with water from a water source to the fire. This came to be known as the bucket brigade, and it was a strenuous practice. Fire buckets often had rounded bottoms to prevent people from using them for other purposes. At one time, it was the law for buildings to have a minimum of 2 fire buckets in case of a fire. In an attempt to save a home, 2 bucket brigade lines are bringing water to a raging fire. Rural communities did not have access to municipal water like their urban counterparts. They relied on streams and lakes for water and their neighbors for help collecting. And here's fire tools. So advancements in technology have prompted changes in tools design and made firefighting safer. While some firefighter tools have evolved, others remain unchanged since the 1920s. Okay, so firefighter axe, hose, spanners, hydrant wrench key, stovepipe tongs, Detroit opener, battering ram. So residents would work together to build a fire truck that suited their needs. Local blacksmiths and mechanics would modify a used truck chassis. Mail order catalogs offered additional firefighting tools and supplies. The Great Depression of the 1930s left rural communities in financial shock. Though they recognized the vital need for a fire truck, often it could be too expensive for communities to buy new. The gear worn by firefighters for personal protection is known as bunker or turnout gear. The term bunker gear originates from a time when firefighters stored their gear next to their bunk or bed. Bunker gear transformed as new materials became available. Coats, helmets, and boots became specialized to protect from fire, water, and extreme temperatures. Long woolen coats with a rubber outer cover protected against heat and water. Collars on coats used stiff corduroy to prevent water from dripping inside. Tall boots made from rubber replaced leather. Here's a display. Fire gear. There's a little kids section here to play. Fire prevention is an important part of firefighting and has been a driver for product innovation. In the late 1800s, newly invented matches were risky. In the early 1900s, they became readily available and could easily start fires, often unintentionally by careless handling. The first matches were slivers of wood impregnated with a delicate and toxic combination of wax, fuel, and phosphorus. They could ignite it accidentally, stepped upon, or carried loosely in pockets. To address this issue, metal containers known as match safes to carry matches became popular and chic. As well, matches could remain to glow hot, known as afterglow, and easily reignite. Match manufacturers responded by adjusting the volatile chemical composition to lessen their toxicity and minimize the afterglow. Okay, so here is some old school matches. This says, these containers for razor blades and cocoa powder have strikers so that they can be repurposed as match safes. Match safes were often small, personal, and decorative. They all had strikers, a ridged area for igniting a match head. Early matches could reignite and were toxic. The church's windows on the outside. There's kind of an interesting carriage garage at the back of the church. Wow. Look at those. Oh, I think that these might be for funerals. Yes. The hearse. So hearses were used to carry coffins to the graveyard. Look at the hearse on display. The one with runners was used in the winter. The bodies were stored in the dead house until the ground thawed for spring burials. Pallbearers carry the coffin in the church and the graveyard. The wagon was used to transport the pallbearers during a funeral. Horse-drawn vehicles like these were used in the 1930s when cars began to replace them. In the early 1800s, the smell of dead bodies was thought to spread disease. In 1833, in Ontario, undertakers began to embalm corpses. Embalming replaced blood and internal organs with chemicals that preserve and disinfect the body. This was common practice by the 1920s and 30s. Cremation, burning the body instead of burying it, was rare at this time. So in 1904, Frank H. Tanner sold his farm and opened a general store in Vars. Soon after, he bought the local cabinet maker's business. The cabinet maker also made coffins. Oftentimes, the cabinet maker was also the undertaker. An undertaker prepares the body for burial and offers other funeral services. F.H. Tanner and Son was one of the only undertakers in Cumberland Township. These hearses were saved in 1951 when their business was destroyed by fire. So Canada's early settlers brought funeral customs with them from Europe. Funerals or wakes often took place at home. A wake is the tradition of staying awake all night with the body after death. Friends and family would visit to see the body and share memories. By the 1930s, funeral parlors were becoming as common as having funerals at home. After the First World War, communities created memorials to commemorate those who fought and died in Knox Church. Next to this shed, you will find honor rolls hanging on the walls. These rolls publicly honored local soldiers that died in the service. Communities also raised stone monuments and statues to commemorate war dead. This is King George VI and Queen Elizabeth unveiling the National War Memorial in 1939 in Ottawa. And this is the Cumberland War Memorial. All right, we are now going to go check out the church. This is what it looks like from the front. Prayer. Got beautiful stained glass windows. Beautiful little piano. Beautiful wood ceiling. And the building right in front of me is where you go when you first come here, and you pay for your ticket for admission. All right, so we have completed the tour of the entire Cumberland Heritage Village Museum. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel if you enjoy videos about things to do in Canada, especially Ontario. Until next time, happy travels.